We will get ready to start and give it another minute or two. All right, we'll get started. First off, I want to first thank everybody for taking the time to either be on now or to view this. I will record it and put it out there on my YouTube channel. So I know some people like to view these on their own time and share with others. So, um, you know, 20 seconds about myself. My name is Michael Poro and been in sales for probably 30 years and sales leadership for probably 24, 25 of those years. And at this point now, I work a lot with smaller and medium-sized companies. I spent a lot of time in healthcare and consumer goods, and I help small and medium-sized companies with some of their sales challenges and structure. So this is another installment or a workshop. I'm kind of trying to take every month a different segment of the sales process. We've done sales structure, repeatable sales process, activities and goals and things like that. We've had three other installments, and this one here is going to be, as you saw, about ICP and really getting to understand that. So, just to quickly frame before we jump in, there's been a research and study and assessments done of over 5,000 small to medium-sized businesses to identify challenges and needs and uncover gaps. And not necessarily surprising because I've been in the small to medium-sized business sector for about 4 or 5 years. Um, uh, and a lot of founders are wearing a lot of hats. So it's harder to have all these processes down. And 97% said we really don't have a sales playbook that's been either in play, updated, and used with the team. And then there's all those different pieces of the sales ecosystem, so to speak, whether it be competitor insights, having a set and repeatable sales process, which we went over in a prior workshop. Understanding and updating your value proposition. And then today we're going to jump into ideal client or customer profile, ICP. And a lot of these things, there are key pieces to being efficient, having a sales team that's running on all cylinders, especially at a time where in different industries, economic times are different. There's less margin for error and so forth. Last slide, just again, looking at some of the trends, and there was a whole report on it that I could share if anybody's interested. A lot of small and medium-sized businesses, self-assessed themselves and said, we've got a poor rating when it comes to sales structure and some of those key pieces. And that's kind of what fuels me and my mission is to help pass on good best practices, do this type of thing, not only for the community, but then again, when I work with a few clients at a time, these are things we jump in together. So ideal customer profile on the right there, just an indication of all the many, major parts of the sales structure or ecosystem. We've covered some of those. I'm going to do more of those in future, workshops. I also do people call me one-on-one on the side and we go through some strategy together. But ICP, I don't know if it's underused or overused, but it's now more important than ever. Every company should really know exactly who their best customers are for many reasons we'll cover. Not only to know who they are, but to also look, currently what you have now, and you'd be surprised your ICP may have shifted. You could see at the bottom there, I've worked with a lot of folks, and somebody will say, yeah, we know our ICP. We did an exercise 2 years ago or 4 years ago, or this is the way we've always done it. These are always our best customers. And sometimes they're right. Other times there's been shifts. I think we all have seen in different industries, consumer behaviors have changed, economic factors, new competitors, could be lower price, different features. And we just got to make sure that you adjust with the times. So it's really important to always know exactly who your best customers are. So one of the things, and I know we've got a lot of times founders and business owners and leaders are viewing this, but I also know there are sales reps and AEs and SDRs and so forth that may view this as well. So there's a applicable nature to both of those groups. But if you really want to take a look at your ICP, there's different ways to take a pulse and to identify it or even confirm what you think you know about it. Number one, really, and this slide covers it, take a look at your current customer data. I feel like 90%, 95% of most companies have a CRM that they can go in there and look at data, not only from a company standpoint, but if you're a sales rep or an SDR, you can look at some of those things when it comes to your own territory as well. And you really want to dig into, you're trying to find the sweet spot. And if I had a magic wand in theory, who's my best customer? What does that profile look like? And then you go into some of your data, right? What customers bring in the highest revenue or have the highest AOV, average order value? Which customers have the longest or the highest lifetime value, or how much have they spent in a 5-year period? You could go farther back. It depends on your industry, but it's good to see over time if it's a repeatable type sale. Who are my best customers that continue to reorder and have been loyal over time? When you're working and doing demos and you have a prospect in the sales pipeline or funnel, there's some factors that you can find that determine some certain customers have a shorter sales cycle. They understand it. Instead of taking 6 months, as an example on something that's a little more intricate, this type of customer only takes 2 months. So you want to just identify which customers usually go quicker through that sales funnel. Again, that's one you probably want to gravitate towards if you can, versus somebody that it might take you 6 to 8 months to really spend a lot of time to grind through that sales process and they may not ever buy, right? Highest profitability, lowest churn, again, retention, which ones stick with you? Are there some characteristics? Is it a large company, small company, mom and pop, founder base, B2B? How many employees or whatever it may be in your industry? Which customers stick around the longest? Are there some trends you could find with those customers? Then you can, again, look at patterns of company size, industry, location. There are times where certain products you may carry may be better suited for the Northeast or cold weather versus warm weather. I worked with a client that had some products. They're actually in the pet space that they figured out finally that there were certain products they had to protect a dog's feet and paws that were better suited for very hot climates to protect them from the heat. And also they promoted it heavily in the Northeast when there was snow. So they understood a little bit more of their customers, what they need, and geographic factors there. So those are all things to look. I've worked with another client that it's a B2B. They work with many industries, and they were trying to sell their products to 10 different industries. We finally looked at all those industries and figured out 6 of them, the close rates were very low. They weren't really getting attached to our value proposition. So we shifted gears. It ended up being auto body and metal shops and marine shipbuilders, where we wanted to go to where we were seeing the best results. And we were spreading our net too wide and wasting marketing dollars and efforts with sales teams making calls to customers that had a very low close rate. So those things are really important to look at. The next thing, and I'm going to move through at a fairly good pace because I know everybody's time is valuable. If you want to ask a question, you can. We can wait to the end. then so that's number one. Look at your data. That's a big one, right? Number two, this can be sometimes easier or it can be a little more challenging, but most of the times you all have some customers. Talk to them, right? Find out why they chose you. How are they finding working with the company? Take them back to when you first had an introductory meeting and talked about the features and benefits of your product. Did you deliver? What was the most important feature that really resonated with you? You really want to figure out, and it's also placed to your value proposition. Some of the answers you hear, you're going to use when you talk to new prospects based on some of those insights. It's really great to do that. I put that note for referrals. A lot of times, when you do identify your best customers, many times they may know others that are just like them. So you want to ask for referrals. I think referrals is another topic, which is somewhat of a lost art, but I would never forget to do that. Then ask about the buying journey, right? And again, it depends on the nature of your product, whether it's a consumable, very quick sale, or a longer sales cycle, technology, and so forth. So let me just admit somebody in the room. So ask about the buying journey. What was involved with the decision? Were there other people on your team? Again, what was one of the biggest factors that won you over? Did we deliver, right? And then I think another one is, what was the trigger moment that made them take action? I was working with a CO2 laser company with cosmetics and dental. Very expensive, $130,000 for this laser. So the sales cycle could be anywhere from 2 months to 6 months. And there were a number of steps in the process. This goes back to a repeatable sales process that's very important to have. But many times we knew there were 3 or 4 different directions we could go to help the buying journey. And my preference at times is to give them the choice so they can navigate a little bit of this on their own. And for instance, after we had an introductory meeting, we would ask them, a lot of our current customers that made the purchase and are using our product, they had mentioned there were a couple different things during the process that were important to them. Number one was talking to one of our owners or a testimonial, finding out how it went in their practice, how was the learning curve, the training, has it paid off for you, and changed the patient care. Number two, it was going right to a demo, coming in your office, setting up, doing a demo, and doing that. The other example here was an ROI, taking a look at the purchase, possibly figuring in payments, monthly payments, showing how to be profitable every month, and actually putting their numbers in. So patient visits and so forth, where we could come out with an ROI. So there could be other ways. So I always like to ask some of your customers, what was the thing that would resonate the most with you? And find out what that is. And that's an important step in the process. So, and the last thing on this slide, it's also good to know when you lost some deals. Now, sometimes it's okay to ask somebody, if you lost a deal to a competitor or something happened, ask them, is there something that I could have done better? Or we could have done better as a company? Is there a key feature that we're missing? And then also take a look at that person as far as your ICP. Maybe that company or that buyer, they were outside of your ICP. And you might start to say, if I ask a number of people that I lost the sale, you might be able to draw some conclusions where, man, I'm trying to sell to a smaller company and it just doesn't work. That's the 5th, lost sale I had that was a smaller company or whatever it may be. Start to draw some trends to understand, if there's any linkage to the deals you do lose. So, and a lot of times it's just a bad lead, right? So those are some things also. Number one, we talked about looking at your data. Number two, talking to your customers. Not only can confirm that they are in your ICP, or you can say, you know what, they weren't in our ICP. That's part of the reason. And again, that goes back to your value proposition too. You're going to learn a lot of things when you talk to your customers that you want to use moving forward. The other thing, again, when you're identifying or confirming your ICP, is let me let somebody in. The other thing you want to do when you're identifying or confirming your ICP is it's good if you can look at data outside of your CRM. When when you're looking at, there's all kinds of different things out there. There's clay. There's obviously news you can get on the internet and you can set up alerts. But you definitely want to keep up with industry trends, what competitors are doing, because just in case you're not on top of your ICP, you can see any shifts of consumer behavior that might tie to your product line or services. So that's really important, I believe, to stay connected. Sometimes it's busy, we all get busy, so it's hard to stay connected, but you can put some alerts in there. A Crunchbase is another one that you can put in different companies or competitors out there or industries, and it will give you alerts. And it's always good to do that. I have a client I work with on Monday mornings. We do a sales huddle. And one of the topics we talk about is what the competitors are doing and what's happening with the marketplace. So we can all share that intel. That's really important. Pain points is something obviously everybody can solve that and we want to identify pain points or a need and fill that. This is somewhat related again to ICP, but also value proposition. I just put it in here. I'm a huge fan of telling stories. A lot of people want to know case use. So anytime when you're talking to any type of prospect, anytime you can bring up something that's either a video, if you could ever video somebody that's using your product, that's amazing, or testimonial, a quote, or even just tell a story about a practice that's just like them or a business just like them that incorporated this product or service. And then they were here at one point, they had these challenges, and then we took them to this point and we delivered on what we talked about. So, and then again, if you could have an ambassador that uses your products, that's more than willing to talk to others on your behalf, that's amazing because it takes you out of the equation sometimes because you're a salesperson, and then rather talk to a peer or somebody else who has used it. So that's another piece of it. Now, I'm going to jump into something after this in terms of a workflow. But one thing that I know probably seems obvious, but when you do identify your ICP and you go through trends in your data, you're going to identify who's a great fit. On the same token, you're going to start to see some trends of, of who's not a good fit. And it's okay. Not every product's all things to all people, right? And salespeople's time is valuable, companies' time, marketing dollars, all those things are valuable. So I would also have you take a look at who's not a good fit. And a lot of companies do that. Some do it well, some don't. I know some salespeople want to just go out there and talk to anybody and knock on every door, but that's not always the best use of time. So you can see the list there, but you can spend money and waste money on bad marketing if you're marketing to the wrong people, the wrong type of group. In certain industries, you can find that don't convert well, that don't really love your product, or there's somebody else out there that's been there longer that might not be worth your investment. Certain company sizes, large and small, may not be a good fit. I think we've all done this in sales when the first question is price and can you beat this or can you beat that? And they don't even want to understand or let you talk to them and pull things out in a discovery meeting. That can be a red flag. If they have, if this service, whether it be SaaS or something else, needs a number of people on the team to buy into it, and only one person in the company buys into it. I've seen it many times where they may love this product, but if they can't convince anybody else in the company to do it, it's a dead end, and there's ways to get around that as well. So I wanted to just speak to that because you should be able to hopefully, I have a feeling a lot of people already know there are certain customers you don't want to necessarily work with. And that plays into marketing spend on social media. You can go to different demographic groups or different companies, website, all those things. The more you know your customer, the better, because dollars are valuable. All right. So here's the risk of not knowing your ICP or not updating it or thinking you know it, right? And I covered a couple of these in the last slide, but low conversion rates, right? Salespeople want to get paid. They want to win. They want commissions. The company wants revenue. If you're doing email campaigns to the wrong industries or the wrong demographics, the close rates usually go down. Again, we talked about ad spend and so forth. If you're talking about features based on some of the things we just talked about, looking at the data, talking to your customers, what's most important to them. If your customers, these things are important to them, and then you're talking about these things in your website and your marketing, it's not aligned. You want to make sure those things are aligned and you're really singing the same song that they enjoy as well. customer retention. If you get somebody that was a bad start and you try to shoehorn in your solution, they may never order again. That might not be somebody that is going to, be an ambassador, love your product and order it again. This is a big one. I hear it all the time. I've been doing this a long time, and I've spent some time in marketing. Marketing will blame sales that I'm giving you great leads, you're not closing it. Sales will blame marketing and say, I'm getting crappy leads. They're not well qualified. They're not in their ICP. So that's reality. And so every time it's a little bit of combination of both. But again, if you don't really have a great ICP honed in, you do risk getting bad leads, and a salesperson is making extra calls to folks that really weren't qualified. It's never a perfect science. You're never going to have every perfect, qualified lead, but there's a way to hone that in. And lastly, you could lose ground. We're in a competitive world. Whatever industry you're in is fairly competitive now. And if you're not sharp with your value proposition, your sales process, your ICP, chances are strong that one or more of your competitors is strong in that area, and they could be gaining ground on you. So that's something that's really important. We're almost done. So here's how some of this magic can go to work when it comes to a workflow. So when you do know, and hopefully you can see this slide, when you do know your ICP, it makes things easier. So, and I say this, every company is different in every industry, but I've worked with a lot of clients where they're trying to get better leads, more demos, more appointments, and so forth. So there are a lot of databases out there like Apollo, Seamless, ZoomInfo. This one here is KnowledgeNet.ai, which I use and I like. So for instance, I'm working with a client right now where we can go in there, and when I know who I'm looking for, the type of person, their title, the type of company, I can go in there and put parameters in this database. I can put in the company, I'd rather work with somebody in New Hampshire or Florida. You can put in location, the whole country. You can pick states you want to work with. You can pick number of employees. We know that we work better with smaller companies that have 5 to 50 employees. You can put that in there as well. And again, some of you may already know this. Industries, you can check off industries. Revenue, I only want to work with companies that are, under $1 million. You can put all those things in there. Then you can actually filter down so you can find out those companies. Then you could actually put in there, you can kind of see it, who you're looking for. I want to talk to the buyer. So for instance, this example here is they want to sell to metal fabrication companies, and I want to talk to the buyer, and I want the United States location, and I want revenue under 100 million. Boom, all of a sudden, these names will pop up. So then what you do in the workflow is you take those names, and it could be 300 names, it could be 6,000 or 10,000 names. You can send that over, export it right into your CRM, Zoho and HubSpot. People ask me a lot about workflows, so that's why I'm going to go through it. And again, you may already know how to do this, but you send that list of a hopefully pretty sharp ICP into a HubSpot or Zoho or Salesforce or whatever you're using. And now all of a sudden you got a pretty good list to either make phone calls, email campaigns, office visits. If you have salespeople that are on the street, you can pick a territory, Columbus, Ohio, and find the certain companies you want there and provide a hit list based on a really tight ICP. You can also send that, if you're advanced as well, into email platforms like Klaviyo is a big one, where you can send all these in there. Then marketing can use those into email campaigns with lead generation, call to action, click here for a virtual event coming up about our medical product, or whatever it may be. They can now they also now know they can market to them on websites, social media, lead generation, and so forth. And that's somewhat of the workflow that can work for you at a higher level when you know your ICP. Some of these things aren't, do cost, have a cost monthly when it comes to email platforms in your CRM. But typically, again, if you're into lead generation, setting up appointments and so forth, these are things that I recommend, and these are the workflows that many times that I work with others on and give them assistance. So I'm going to pause. We went through a number of things in terms of why ICP is important, some ways you can identify trends in your ICP, whether it be looking at data, your current data in your CRM, talking to customers, keeping up with the marketplace, trends, industry, competitors. So that's kind of the recap there. I'm going to pause for a moment. I don't know if there's any questions or anything to add to that. Happy to answer that, or even if you have a question about value proposition or sales process or something like that, I'm happy to do it now or on the side as well. And there may not be. I did such a great job. So we'll move on to the final slide. And again, I appreciate everybody being here and watching, whether it's live or even virtually when I record it. Here's my just quick recap for everybody. If you can, I would take a pulse on your ICP based on some of the things we mentioned earlier. It should be done literally annually. Sometimes it can be quick, but you should be keeping up to date on all those things because you don't want the market to change and you're left behind. You should, when you do have those results and you have some insights around your ICP, talk about it with the team, operations, sales, marketing, so you all can be together. And if there's a pivot, you do it all together and you're on the same page. This is an old exercise, but when you do figure out your ICP and you learn a few things, there are certain things you want to start doing that you may have not done before. There's a couple things or different folks or industry segments that you've gone after that aren't paying off for you. Stop, spending so much time in that particular industry or that group of people. And then certain things you might be doing, obviously, that are great, continue to do it. And if it's working well, put the foot on the gas and do more of it. Create your own workflow. I went through a little bit about that. If that's your industry and you want to have email campaigns and be able to work with those platforms, I would recommend to have some of those things work for you. You can have automations happening where hopefully you're feeding leads based on hopefully a robust ICP database to hopefully find new opportunities. Lastly, you can see there, I like that quote. I've said it before. I'm a big fan of it. Companies that are proactive, that invest, that do these things, that have some of those pieces in place, update their sales roadmap, value proposition, sales process, compensation plans, ICP. There are a bunch of companies that are doing that, and they're going to get ahead. So I always recommend to stay sharp. And then lastly, down there, you'll see I do have like a workbook or a guide that I could send you as well, that you could actually do that exercise at your business, that will take you through some of the things I covered, that you can go ahead and do your ICP audit on your own. So I do have that guide if you want to. You have my email, and you could let me know if you want me to send that your way. Again, that's what I do. I'm happy to help, and I'll pause there for anything else. All right. Well, thank you for being a part of this. Oh, there's a question in the chat. Sorry. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. Anybody needs me, there's my information there. You have my email. I do have conversations all the time with folks. I have an assessment that could look at all the pieces of your sales ecosystem. You can self-evaluate yourself 1 to 5. I do usually have 1 or 2 conversations a week with founders and business owners. I'm here to help people. I'm not a hard sale. I'm a resource. I only can work with a couple clients at a time anyways, and I'd rather just do the right thing and do programs like this, and hopefully it helps a few different companies. So that's it. I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.